Most financial advice focuses on the destination. You see the mansions, the early retirement parties, and the compound interest charts that curve beautifully upward into the millions. But nobody talks enough about the beginning. Nobody talks about the pain. There is a specific period in your financial life that I call the valley of death. This is that suffocating window of time where you are doing everything right, yet getting absolutely nowhere. You are saving aggressively. You are sacrificing the daily lattes. You are driving the car with the check engine light on. You are skipping the summer vacation that all your friends are posting about on Instagram. You take $1,000 of your hard-earned money, money you traded hours of your life for, and you throw it into the stock market. And what happens? The market drops 2%. Suddenly, you look at your account balance and realize you have less money than you started with. You made the sacrifice, you paid the price, and your reward was a financial punch in the gut. It feels like running in quicksand. It feels like a scam. And statistically speaking, this is where 90% of people quit. They look at the numbers, they look at their miserable bank account, and they decide that the system is rigged or that the math simply doesn't work. But the math isn't broken. The problem is that your brain is lying to you. The antagonist of this story is a concept called linearity. As human beings, we are biologically wired to expect linear progress. It is an evolutionary trait. If you take 10 steps forward, you move 10 meters. If you hunt for 2 hours, you gather twice as much food as you would in 1 hour. We expect a one-to-one relationship between our effort and our results. When we work hard, we expect to see the needle move immediately. But the world of finance is nonlinear. It is exponential. And the cruel joke of exponential growth is that in the beginning, the curve looks completely flat. In the early stages of building wealth, the gap between your effort and your results is massive. Your input is huge. You are grinding, saving, and stressing, but the output is microscopic. You are pushing a boulder with everything you have, and it is moving millimeters. This mismatch creates a psychological torture chamber. You start to question if it is even worth it. You think, why am I living like a monk just to save a few $100s that the market might erase tomorrow? This is the great filter. This is the barrier that separates the wealthy from the working class. Most people cannot survive the psychological friction of working for free. They turn back before the curve starts to bend. This brings us to the roadmap for this entire video. Charlie Munger, the late billionaire and legendary business partner of Warren Buffett, understood this friction better than anyone. He didn't offer comforting words about budgeting or balanced portfolios. He gave us a command. He famously said, "The first $100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it. I don't care what you have to do if it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that wasn't purchased with a coupon. Find a way to get your hands on $100,000. When you first hear that, it sounds aggressive. It sounds almost dismissive of how hard it is to save money in today's economy. But why did one of the smartest investors in history single out that specific number? Why 100,000? Why not 50,000? Why not 1 million? Is it just a psychological milestone because it has 6 figures? Is it just a nice round number to aim for? No, it is much more than that. Charlie Munger wasn't giving life advice. He was describing a mathematical reality. The $100,000 mark is not just a trophy on your shelf. It is a mathematical event horizon. It is the specific point in your financial journey where the laws of physics change. It is the moment where the friction stops working against you and starts working for you. If you are currently stuck in the valley of death, feeling like you are pushing that boulder up a vertical wall, I need you to understand one thing. You are not doing it wrong. The math is just heavily weighted against you in the beginning. But that weight is about to shift. We are going to prove mathematically why the first 100,000 is the hardest money you will ever make, and why everything, and I mean everything, changes the moment you cross that line. We are going to strip away the emotion now. We are going to look at the cold, hard mechanics of why the early stages of investing feel so unrewarding. This brings us to a concept I call capital drag. To understand this, we have to look at a portfolio under that magic 6-figure number. Let's assume you have managed to save your first $10,000. That is a huge achievement. For most people, that represents months, maybe a year of discipline. You put that money into the market, and let's assume you get a respectful inflation-adjusted return of 7%. At the end of the year, your $10,000 has earned you $700. Now, break that down. $700 over a year is about $1.91 a day. Think about that. You have $10,000 of your capital at risk. You have stressed over the volatility, and in return, the market pays you less than the cost of a drip coffee. It is negligible. It feels insulting. You look at that $1.91 and think, I could find this in my couch cushions. This is where the conflict arises. It is the battle between your contributions, which is your labor, and your returns, which is your capital. To get that $10,000 into the account, you likely had to save $500 or $1,000 a month from your paycheck. You had to wake up, commute, work 8 hours, and actively choose not to spend that money. Your labor is heavy, but your capital is weak. In this early phase, 95% of your net worth growth is coming from you. Only 5% is coming from the money itself. This is why it feels like a grind. Because it is a grind. You are doing all the heavy lifting. Visualize this as a relay race. There are 2 runners on your team. The first runner is you. The second runner is compound interest. The problem is, for the first few laps, the second runner hasn't even started stretching yet. You are running the track alone, sweating, gasping for air, looking back, waiting for your partner to take the baton, but they are just standing there watching you. Let's run the numbers as you progress. Even when you reach $25,000, a 7% return is only $1,700. You can save that in 2 months of aggressive budgeting. Your money is still lazy. Let's go further. Let's look at $50,000. This is halfway to the milestone. Surely the math changes here. Not really. 7% of $50,000 is $3,500. If you are saving $10,000 a year from your job, your labor is still almost 3 times more powerful than your capital. You are still the primary engine of your wealth. This reality debunks the magic of compound interest myth that financial gurus love to sell beginners. They show you charts of millions of dollars, but they fail to mention that compound interest is biologically useless without a critical mass of fuel. It is like trying to start a bonfire with a single twig. It doesn't matter how big the spark is, there isn't enough material to sustain the burn. This phase of the journey is not about investment returns. It is about survival. It is about accepting the fact that for the first several years, you are throwing money into a black hole and getting very little echo back. This is the math of resistance. The system is designed to test your patience because, mathematically, your money simply isn't heavy enough to pull its own weight yet. But, and this is the most important but of your financial life, this imbalance is temporary. There is a specific tipping point where the scales finally balance, and the relay runner finally grabs the baton. And that point is closer than you think. Here is where we reveal the magic trick. We have reached the $100,000 mark. Let's stop and look at the numbers again because this is the specific point where the simulation breaks. At $100,000, a conservative 7% return generates $7,000 a year. If you are still saving $10,000 a year from your labor, which is a difficult task, your investments are now doing nearly half the work for you. Think about what that actually means. You have effectively hired a part-time employee. This employee works for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never sleep, they never complain, they never call in sick, and most importantly, they reinvest every single penny they earn back into your business. For the first time in your life, you are not the only one pulling the rope. This is the crossover point. It is the moment where capital begins to rival labor. Up until now, you were the engine. You provided the fuel, the maintenance, and the forward momentum. But now the sails are unfolding. Let's project this graph just a little bit further because this is where it gets truly exciting. Shortly after you pass $100,000, you will experience a phenomenon I call financial escape velocity. There will come a year, and it will happen sooner than you expect, where the market returns exceed what you could physically save in a year. Let's say the market has a good year, a bull run. It goes up 10%. That is not uncommon. On a $100,000 portfolio, a 10% gain is $10,000. Pause and let that sink in. That is $10,000 that you did not have to work for. To save that same amount of money from your paycheck, you would have to wake up early, commute through traffic, deal with office politics, and deny yourself spending money for 12 straight months. Your money just did that for you in a single year of passive existence. This is the moment the boulder reaches the top of the hill. For years, you have been pushing this massive weight up a steep incline. Your muscles are burning, your feet are slipping, and every inch of progress required maximum effort. But at $100,000, the ground levels out. You are no longer fighting gravity, you are beginning to use it. The burden of growth shifts from you to the system. The viewer needs to understand that $100,000 isn't just 10 times more than $10,000. It is a fundamentally different state of existence. It is a phase change. Water at 33 degrees is cold fluid. Water at 32 degrees is solid rock. The difference is 1 degree, but the state of matter is completely different. Think of an airplane taking off. The first $100,000 is the runway. It is the most dangerous and energy-intensive part of the flight. The engines are at maximum thrust, the fuel burn is immense, the noise is deafening, and yet the plane is barely moving. You are fighting rolling resistance and drag. It feels like a lot of noise for very little altitude, but passing $100,000 is the moment the wheels leave the tarmac. The friction disappears, the drag coefficient drops. You are still using fuel, but now, for every unit of energy you expend, you are climbing hundreds of feet. You are wheels up. The hardest part of the flight is physically behind you, and for the first time, you can look out the window and see the horizon. Now that we have established the $100,000 baseline, we need to talk about velocity. Up until this point, the question has been, how do I survive? Now the question becomes, how long until the next one? This is the part of the video where the math stops being depressing and starts being absolutely electrifying. This is the payoff. Let's answer the most important question. How long does it take to get the next $100,000? To find the answer, we are going to run a simulation. We will keep the variables exactly the same as before to show you the raw power of the capital you have accumulated. We assume you continue to save $10,000 a year, and the market continues to return 7%. The first $100,000 took you approximately 7.8 years to accumulate. That was the marathon. That was the grind we just talked about. Nearly 8 years of discipline, but watch what happens next. Because you start the next leg of the race with a 6-figure army behind you, the journey from $100,000 to $200,000 does not take 7.8 years. It takes only 5.1 years. You just shaved almost 3 years off the timeline without saving a single extra penny from your paycheck. Let's keep going. The journey from $200,000 to $300,000, that takes only 3.8 years. The journey from $300,000 to $400,000, 3 years flat. By the time you are aiming for your 6th $100,000, you are completing the cycle every 18 months using the exact same monthly contribution you started with. This is the concept of time compression. The first 100,000 is a marathon. The second is a half marathon. The third is a 10K run. Eventually, you are sprinting that same financial distance in a matter of months. This is the snowball effect visualized. When you roll a snowball down a hill, the surface area increases. Every rotation picks up more snow than the rotation before it. The most critical realization here is that the difficulty of wealth building is not consistent. It is heavily front-loaded. The hardest part is literally just the duration of the first phase. Once you understand this, you realize that the game is rigged in your favor, provided you stay on the field long enough to let the physics take over. However, we must address the psychological trap that waits for you here. It is called the boring middle. Once you pass the excitement of the first 100,000 and the terror of the initial struggle fades, you enter a phase where you simply watch the numbers tick up. It is not dramatic, it is not flashy, it is just math doing its job in the background. Many people get restless here. They want to tinker. They want to pick stocks, trade crypto, or time the market to speed things up. But the math tells us that the best thing you can do is absolutely nothing. You have built the machine. Now you must let it run. While your money compounds, your freedom compounds even faster. Every $100,000 block buys you significantly more years of freedom than the previous block. Why? Because the soldiers, your dollars, that you recruited in the first act are now recruiting their own soldiers. The first army took you 8 years to build, but that army is now large enough to conquer territory on its own. The first block bought you a safety net. The second block buys you a sabbatical. The third block buys you the option to retire early. The fourth block buys you generational wealth. The timeline collapses, the options expand, and the gravity that once held you down begins to reverse. You are no longer pushing the boulder. You are chasing it. Let's bring this back down to earth. If you are watching this and you currently have $10,000, or maybe you are staring at a negative net worth, hearing about how fast money multiplies after 300,000 might be frustrating. It might feel like I am describing a different planet. You don't care about the snowball effect yet. You just want to get the snowball moving without breaking your back. You need to survive Act 1. We established earlier that in the beginning, the only variable that moves the needle is your savings rate. The market cannot save you yet. You have to save yourself. So how do we cheat? How do we shorten the duration of the Valley of Death? Since we know the math is weighted against us, we have to fight dirty. There are 3 levers you can pull to escape gravity faster. The first lever is what I call the scorched earth budget. Most people try to save what is left over. That is a recipe for failure. The scorched earth approach is a temporary, aggressive period of strategic deprivation. This isn't about cutting coupons for the rest of your life. This is about asking yourself, what is the absolute minimum I can survive on for the next 24 months? Can you live with roommates? Can you sell the car? Can you cancel every subscription? I know it sounds miserable, but remember the math of time compression. Every dollar you save now is worth 5 times more than a dollar you save 10 years from now because of the time it has to compound. You are not depriving yourself. You are buying years of your future freedom at a discount. A year of sacrifice now saves you 5 years of work later. The second lever is income offense. There is a mathematical floor to how much you can cut. You cannot budget your way to $100,000 if you are earning $30,000 a year. If the math doesn't work, you need to change the equation. You don't need a budget, you need a bigger shovel. You need to job hop. You need to acquire skills that the marketplace actually values. If your current job doesn't allow you to save at least 20% of your income, your primary job is no longer your work. Your primary job is finding a new job, and the critical rule here is this: when you get that raise, do not upgrade your lifestyle. Funnel every single cent of that new income directly into the machine. The third lever is the set and forget psychology. The reason most people fail to reach the first 100,000 is because they rely on willpower. Willpower is a battery and it runs out. If you have to decide to transfer money to your investment account every month, you will eventually find a reason not to. You need to automate the pain. Set up the transfer for the day after your paycheck hits. Make it so the money is gone before you even have the chance to miss it. If you don't see it, you can't spend it. You need to build a system that is smarter than your own human desire for instant gratification. The journey to the first $100,000 is a test. It is the universe asking you how badly you want to be free. It demands that you delay gratification when everyone else is indulging. It demands that you keep walking when you can't see the finish line. But remember the image we started with, the character pushing the boulder up the hill. As you cross that 6-figure line, look at that character again. They aren't sweating anymore. They aren't straining. They are standing at the peak of the mountain, wiping their brow, watching that boulder roll down the other side, picking up speed, getting bigger and bigger, moving under its own momentum. The struggle was not infinite. It was just the price of admission. The first 100,000 is the hardest because it is the only time you are working alone. After that, your money works with you.